some sorts, please. Thank you.
Okay, then we should continue. Let me introduce today's speaker, Dr. Swathi Chakraborty. But before formal introduction, I would rather introduce her informally because I know her from university days. When she took admission in master degree at Science College, I was doing research. My guide, Professor Buddhadev Chaudhary, was convener of Human Rights Department. So we used to meet at several occasions and exchanged our academic views. She was a bright student. We are connected to each other since last 20 years. So I think Swati will be agreed to it. And now formal introduction, Dr. Swathi Chakraborty is Assistant Professor of Human Rights and Women's Studies in School Guru EduServe Private Limited. She was International Fellow of CAICID at Vienna, Austria. She has done her PhD in Human Rights from University of Calcutta with the thesis on right to education, a study on tribal women of rural West Bengal. She was attached with the National Human Rights Commission, India as a research consultant. Dr. Chakraborty has good teaching expertise as lecturer in the English College, School of Management, Calicut, Kerala. Her special lectures are on human values, ethics to management studies, and dignity and rights. She is also a member of Executive Council at National Center for Inclusive Growth and Development Research, NCDR, Mysore. Member of a review committee of Rajeshwari Journal of Psychological and Educational Research. Also, she is the editor of books like Handbook of Social Media for Digital and Social Inclusion, Tribal Development, Gender Identity and Roles in India, Issues and Challenges. Besides this, she has published multidisciplinary Handbook of Social Exclusion and Human Rights and Handbook of International Relations, Issues of Human Rights and Foreign Policy. It has 2 volumes. So it is a never-ending process. Swati has so many things to share with us, and Swati has achieved many things in his this young age. So I welcome Swati and heartiest welcome to you. Now the floor is open to you. Please, I welcome you to deliver your lecture. Thank you, Swati.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank to Principal Sir and a wonderful research committee that you have already set up. I thank you, Dr. Shuman Chakraborty Sir, Dr. Suchishmita Sen. Dr. Suchishmita is like my big sister, because when I actually started my PhD journey, she is the first person when I called that I received UGC NET exam and how to proceed with the formality of PhD. It's a never-ending process, as Suchishmita Di rightly pointed out, that we have so many things to share. For today's particular lecture, I have selected some of the very broad theme of human rights, because human rights, as you all know, it's a very vast subject as a core subject. And nowadays, with the UGC guideline, we have human rights in all subjects. So human rights have been divided into short courses for each and every subject individually. I'm going to start the presentation for today. Suchishmita, just let me know that you're able to see my screen.
Yes, I can see your presentation.
Fine. Thank you. So as you can see, today's topic is human rights and anthropological approach. Human rights, by definition, are the ultimate norm of all politics. Today, everyone talks about them and struggle for the recognition as the identity of an individual, recognition in the society, recognition as an individual for the family, for the society, for your institution where you are working. So recognition, promotion, and protection, these are the vital words for human rights. Moreover, it needs to be recalled that both the classical as well as contemporary political theories have affirmed and reaffirmed the significant principle that is the individual for whom the state, or for that matter, any social or legal order that exists and not the vice versa. Since 1948, the United Nations has adopted more than 100 human rights documents converting the entire gamut of human relationships. So whenever we are into the human relationships and human being, anthropology is a subject when we actually able to connect ourselves. So for the sociology, for the anthropology, for psychology, and for the geography as well, because I'm from geography background, so I can relate human rights with geography. In geography also, we have a human geography portion where we can able to connect the human beings and the relationships. These, among others, deals with the rights to women, children, refugees, migrants, workers, stateless persons, minorities, indigenous populations, STs, and the prohibition of racial and religious discrimination. Genocide, slavery, torture, stateless persons, torture, minority crisis, and indigenous population issues, these are the vital in these days. Along with this, climate is a very important aspect as environmental rights for us only. We should protect our environment for our own purpose. Human beings, as a very own perspective, they have to protect environment with these issues. With the introduction of the International Protection of Human Rights, there appeared an institutional mechanisms of international human rights laws capable of becoming the basis and framework of full development of man's personality and represent for the standing as a human beings and equality of the citizens before law within a various states. Whenever we are talking about human rights, two concepts have been coming around. One is the Western philosophy and one is the Eastern philosophy. As the Eastern philosophers, from the Indian perspective, human rights were being inclined much more with the philosophical aspects of ethics, value-based education from our early childhood days. Human rights will be more related with human duties. So all these are relevant to each other and very much interrelated with each other. Human beings are born equal in dignity and rights. These are the moral claims which are inalienable and inherent in all individuals by virtue of their humanity alone. So human rights, মানবাধিকার, যেটাকে নিয়ে আমরা জন্মাই, মানবাধিকার আমরা কারোর থেকে পাই না, কারোর থেকে পেতে পারি না, এটা নিয়েই আমরা জন্মাই। তাই জন্য human rights are the natural rights. Human rights is different from fundamental rights. Why? Fundamental rights are those rights when it means legally virtued. তার মানে ফান্ডামেন্টাল রাইটস তখনই হবে হিউম্যান রাইটসটা যখন সেটা কনস্টিটিউশন ওয়াইজ প্রুভড হবে উইথ দ্য লফুল এনাক্টমেন্ট। তার মানে আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ান কনস্টিটিউশনে which are the fundamental rights, these are also human rights, but all human rights might not be the fundamental rights, because fundamental rights are those rights which have the lawful enactment. So with this, the virtue of the humanity alone, irrespective of any caste, color, creed, place of birth, sex, cultural differences, or any other considerations, these are the human rights that we actually receive from our birthrights. These claims are articulated and formulated in what is today is known as human rights. Human rights are sometimes referred as fundamental rights, basic rights, inherent rights, natural rights, and birthrights. But here I would like to point it out that fundamental rights are different, a little bit different from human rights. So now I will move to the historical background, a little bit about human rights, how human rights been come to this, and what are the main historical parameters to understand. First and foremost thing is the Cyrus cylinder. It's a kind of a cylinder, and it has been written in 539 BC, before Christ. So you can imagine that how old it is actually. The decrees Cyrus made on human rights were inscribed in the Akkadian language on a baked clay cylinder. একটা কাঁচা মাটির উপরে বেকড, সেটাকে বেক করে, যেটাকে আমরা বলি পোড়া মাটি, সেই রকম একটা সিলিন্ডারে ইনস্ক্রিপ্ট মানে লেখা হলো কি কি না মানবাধিকার কি কি হতে পারে, একটা সভ্যতাকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাওয়ার জন্য কি কি প্রয়োজন হতে পারে, সেটা লেখা হলো সেখানে, সেটাকে পোড়ানো হলো। কবে? 539 BC, before Christ. So the decrees was made for the value of human rights. This document asserting with individual rights and now move to the Magna Carta. That is the major human rights document in 1215. The Petition of Rights, 1628, the US Constitution, 1787, French Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizen, 1789, US Bill of Rights, 1791, are the written documents for many of today's human rights scenario. So the arguably the most significant early influence on the extensive historical process that led to the rule of constitutional law today in the English-speaking world. Petition of Rights. In 1628, English Parliament sent the Statement of Civil Liberties to King Charles I. This is another important document for human rights. United States Declaration of Independence, 1776. In the 1776, Thomas Jefferson's penned the American Declaration of Independence. Another important document for human rights, the Constitution of United States of America, 1787, and Bill of Rights, 1791. Following the French Revolution in 1789, the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizens granted specific freedoms from oppression as an expression of general will. So these are the basic historical approaches of human rights. Now, the brief history of human rights theory. With the birth of United Nations in the mid-20th century, well after the first Geneva Convention in 1864, which established a series of rules in the context of armed conflict, we witnessed the birth of what we know now as the United Nations in 1945, exactly at the end of the Second World War. 50 states have been gathered together to save the succeeding generations from the source of the mass killing in the field of war. The two world war was a massive destruction of violations of human rights, and which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind, as stated in the preamble of the proposed charter. 3 years later, in 30 articles have been made with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were presented to the world, acting for the first time as recognized internationally accepted charter. Those first article states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. This was been written in the first article. What is the meaning of human rights? In general terms, human rights are entitlements due to every man, woman, and child because they are human. মানুষ, তাই জন্য আমাদের মানবাধিকার থাকবে। মানুষ হিসেবে আমাদের কতগুলো অধিকার জন্মগত, সেইটাই হচ্ছে মানবাধিকারের প্রথম এবং মূল উদ্দেশ্য। In other words, certain inherent and inalienable rights due to human beings simply to being human. The concept of human rights derives from human dignity. অর্থাৎ সমমর্যাদা, dignity, আমাদের যে মানুষ হিসেবে আমাদের যে মর্যাদা, and the inherent worth of the human beings. Therefore, it is suggested that whatever adds to human dignity and the fundamental freedom of humans is a human right. Some definitions of rights. According to Ernest Barker, rights are the external conditions necessary for the greatest possible development of the capacities of the personality. Harold Lasky defines as rights as those conditions of social life without which no man can seek in general to be his best. On their importance, he remarked, the state is known by the rights it maintains. In other words, Bernard Bashot's, we have a right to the means that are necessary to the development of our lives in the direction of the highest good or the community of which we are a part. That means each and every researcher in the field of political, sociological, and psychological perspective, they would rightly point it out about the definition and the nature of human rights, that human rights can be enshrined with a wonderful environment. We should always keep in mind that environment is a very important factor here to provide a good personality upliftment. Dr. Justice Durgadas Basu defines human rights are those minimal rights which every individual must have against the state or other public authority by virtue of his being a member of human family, irrespective of any consideration. As we are part of the human family in this society, we are entitled to enjoy our basic rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR 1948, defines human rights as rights derived from the inherent dignity of human person. Human rights, when they are granted by a written constitution, are known as fundamental rights because a written constitution is the fundamental law of the state. Evolution of rights. Developments as domestic level from the international norms, international law, and international parameter. Now we consider human rights as our very own family, for our own society, for our own state, and then the national approach. So if we are looking into a very micro level understanding of human rights, that is actually been derived from our own family. No, for me, I think with your individuality, we are always struggling a lot with our inner conflict. What should we do? There is the point when we actually think about the right things to do. That is the starting point of human rights within yourself, then starting to your family. If within your family you are being violated or you are violating others' right, that is also a consideration of human rights. Then move on to our society. If in the society someone is having any kind of issues in their family or health crisis, that is also a point of view from the human rights perspective. And then move on to the state level, then the national level crises are also in a bigger micro to macro. And in this way, we will move on to the development approach of human rights. The evolution of human rights have taken place over centuries. Man had a struggle hard in order to achieve the ultimate goal, living with dignity, which still has to be realized in the various societies. India itself is an example where women, children, Dalits, bonded laborers, etc. is trying very hard till now in 2020 also to be a part of mainstream. Still in some parts of the India, Dalits, women, children, they are being not considered as a human being. মানুষ হিসেবে তাদের গণ্যই করা হয় না। And for that, they have fundamental rights, human rights, everything in the documented process, but still they are not getting their dignity as a human being. So it's a real crisis for today's world we are going to enter from developing to developed nation as India. So we are struggling a lot with this. Irrespective of any kind of prejudice, irrespective of any kind of religious prejudice, India is considered one of the most non-religious believers to some extent, but still we can able to see the deprivations against the minorities. The deprivation on the Dalits can be seen till now. The world recognized the UN Charter of 1945, which states that human rights are inalienable aspects of mankind. Now move on to the basic characteristics of human rights. Human rights are based on dignity, equality, and mutual respect. Respect is a very, very important term for the understanding of human rights, because if we don't have the respect to others, we can't think him or her as a human being. সম্মান যদি না থাকে অন্যের প্রতি, রেসপেক্ট যদি না থাকে অন্যের প্রতি, তাহলে তাকে সমানাধিকার দেওয়া, তাকে মর্যাদা দেওয়া প্রশ্নই আসে না আমাদের মাথায়। So regardless of the nationality, your religion or your beliefs, you should provide dignity, equality, and mutual respect. Your rights are about being treated fairly and treating others fairly. So whenever we are talking about human rights, human duties would rather be included. It's kind of a two sides of same coin. So whenever we are actually asking for our rights, at the same time we have to do our duties to achieve those rights, because until and unless we as an individual not committed to do best for the society, we can't claim equal amount of rights from the society itself. So it's kind of a vice versa process. Universality. Human rights is universal. It belongs to all, everybody in the world. So it's universal, inalienable, that cannot be taken away from us. তোমার থেকে কেউ নিয়ে নিতে পারবে না তোমার হিউম্যান রাইটসটা। সো ইটস ইনএলিয়েনেবল, কেউ নিয়ে নিতে পারবে না। Indivisible and interdependent. Government should not be able to pick and choose which are respected. So indivisible, সরকারও তোমার থেকে নিয়ে নিতে পারবে না, এবং প্রত্যেকটা রাইটস, each and every rights are interdependent with each other. একটা মানুষের যখন কাজ করার অধিকার রয়েছে, right to work, at the same time he would have the right to have some pleasures. তার বিশ্রামেরও অধিকার রয়েছে, কাজ করার অধিকারের সাথে সাথে বিশ্রামের অধিকারও রয়েছে। অর্থাৎ একটা মানুষকে শুধুমাত্র কাজ করে যেতে হবে সেটা নয়। So at the same time it is interrelated. Again, I'm talking about the political rights and the civil rights. When we have the right to vote, to elect, at the same time we have the right to have the basic amenities from the society as a civilians, as a civil society part. Human rights can be violated although they are inalienable. Some parts of the world, human rights are being brutally violated. People are not having the right to vote as they are women in some part of the world. We are thankful that we are in a democratic country like India, where we actually raise voice against any kind of violations, irrespective of our gender, irrespective of our caste. We have so many problems altogether, but still we can actually ask for the basic human rights from the government. Human rights are essential because they are part and parcel of your freedom, justice, and peace. Human rights are moral principles or norms that describe certain standards of human behavior and are regularly protected as natural and legal rights in municipal and international law. Municipal means in a domestic way, and in an international way, as in a both way. So they are commonly understood as inalienable fundamental rights to which a person is inherently entitled simply because she or he is a human being, and which are inherent in all human beings, regardless in their age and ethnic origin, location, language, religion, ethnicity, or any other status. Irrespective of any ethnicity, irrespective of any race, irrespective of any religion, language, location, where you are from, your age, even the old age person also claims similar rights as the younger one. I'm talking about the issues of the current pandemic, for example, changing modes of our theoretical perspective. In the contemporary world, we are struggling a lot nowadays due to COVID-19 pandemic. And in some parts of the world, I'm not talking about India, in some parts of the developed world, we have the data also that in Italy, particularly, I'm mentioning the name of the Italy because it happened there. They have been not treating COVID-19 patient, COVID positive patient about the age of 75, 80s. Can you imagine the situation? Can you imagine the tremendous mental harassment that they are having? That as you are elderly person, you are not worthy for the society. তোমার আর প্রয়োজন নেই মানুষ হিসেবে, তুমি বয়স হয়ে গেছে, তুমি মরে যাও। Is that the right thing? Do you think so? মানুষ হিসেবে কি এটাই আমরা আশা করি একটা ডেভেলপড কান্ট্রি থেকে? that তোমার বয়স হয়ে গেছে, তোমার বেঁচে থাকার প্রয়োজন নেই। Denial of human rights. It happened in this time of pandemic. We actually witnessed the cruel, dark faces of society in this time of crisis. It's example. The doctrine of human rights has been highly influential within international law and global and religion with the regional institutions. I will come to the institutions of human rights later on. Actions by states and non-governmental organizations form a basis of public policy worldwide. The collaboration of government and non-government and intergovernmental organization, these three basic parameters of protection and promotion of human rights are doing right now. Government is one of a major institution for promotion of human rights. At the same time, non-governmental organization, mainly the NGOs. NGO are kintu one of the biggest source of the raising the voice for the protection and promotion of human rights. Whenever there is a crisis in any society, in any topic which are related with human rights, I think one NGO would definitely come forward and raise their voice for the protection and for the recognition of that particular group of community which have been violated. So the idea of human rights suggests that if the public discourse of the peacetime global security and in the society, particularly in this globalized world, can be said have a common moral language, that is human rights. So whenever we are talking about the global peace, global security, safety, protection of human rights is the main criteria for maintaining the world peace. Many of the basic ideas that animated human rights movement development in the aftermath of the Second World War and events of Holocaust, culminating the adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Paris by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. Remember this date, is very important date. And 10th December is a Human Rights Day. So it's coming soon in the world today. That has been accepted the notice that all human beings are entitled to and are empowered for a dignified existence. মর্যাদা সহকারে বেঁচে থাকা, সত্যি কথা বলতে। কিন্তু সেটা কি পুরো বিশ্বব্যাপী সত্যি হচ্ছে? এই যে করোনা পরিস্থিতি, আমার তো মনে হয় না যে কোনোভাবেই ডেভেলপিং আর ডেভেলপড কান্ট্রিজ এর মধ্যে তফাৎ আর রইল। Developing countries are acting সমস্যা. In the developing countries, we are facing a lot of the economical crisis that is innumerable. I think it will take decades to overcome from this economical crisis, from this pandemic. But what about the social security, as a human being, the social safety in the developed world also? For the demand and realization of diverse values to ensure their individual and collective well-being. However, these demands of rights are denied through exploitation, oppression, persecution, etc. in many countries of the world. Now, moving to the nature of human rights. Number one, human rights are universal moral rights. It belongs to everyone, as I already told you. Number two, one of the guiding principles in the rights are available to all persons in the state, irrespective of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property or other status, according to Article 2 UDHR. They are universally applicable to all persons. They are universal in sense that is being transcend the national boundaries or ideologies that are designed to be culturally and ideologically neutral. The concept of human rights is comprehensive in its nature and content. It includes all categories of rights, such as civil and political rights. Civil and political rights civil and political rights are those rights mainly for the voting rights, right to elect, right to be elected. These are the main political rights. Economic rights, right to work, right to have a fair and justice in terms of your sex, creed, caste, color. সব জায়গায় সবাই কাজ পাওয়ার অধিকার সোজা অর্থে। That is the right to economic rights. Social rights and cultural rights. Social rights means right to have equality in the society, and if your rights are being violated, you will be equally treated by law. These are the social rights. We have so many social rights as well. Cultural rights, irrespective of any religious practitioners or beliefs, you will be treated in the same way, as well as right to education. That is one of the biggest cultural rights. And even the newly emerging group or the collective rights, like rights of the minority as a collective, as a group, as a community. Indigenous people's rights, right to development, right to peace, right to clean environment, and so on. So many rights have been evolved in this contemporary world scenario. I think after COVID era, we will again another forms of rights. These will be called fourth phase of human rights, because we have already 3 generations of human rights. So I think fourth generation of human rights will come soon after this COVID. Also, all rights and freedoms are indivisible and interdependent. The United Nations doesn't rank them in any hierarchy or any order of priority, but they are all equal in a form. Rights are not absolute or unlimited. Some of them can be suspended due to war or public emergency. That is very important aspect, that it could be suspended in any forms of emergency time. Like, for example, in this COVID situation, in this pandemic, right to movement have been restricted. Yes, so we may not able to go outside. আমরা বাইরে যেতে পারছি না, তাই তো? এবার অনেকে এটা নিয়ে প্রতিবাদ করবে। Even it happened. USA তে এটা নিয়ে প্রতিবাদ হয়েছে, বাইরে বেরিয়েছে উইদাউট মাস্ক এবং বেরোচ্ছে, তারা বেরিয়ে চলেছিল সেই সময়তেও, কারণ সেটা তাদের মনে হচ্ছে যে তাদের মানবাধিকারকে হরণ করা হচ্ছে, তাদের right to freedom to movement anywhere is being deprived due to this COVID scenario. People are not actually getting the emergency, the importance of being locked down, for the quarantine, for this particular social distancing. That is another crisis. Now, the democratic rights and human rights. Human rights and natural rights. I have already spoken about this. So the term human rights came into this understanding from 20th century. In the earlier centuries, these rights were commonly spoken as natural rights or rights of the men. The theory of natural rights emerged in the 17th century in the writings of Hobbes, Locke, even with the writings of Rousseau, who attributed natural rights to the natural law, which provided that no one ought to harm another to his life, health, liberty, and possessions. That law could therefore be said to give each person a natural right to life, liberty, and property. though it also imposed upon each unnatural duty to respect the lives, liberty, and properties of others. As I rightly pointed out, that human rights will not be alone. Human rights will always come with human duties. Now, moving to the parameters of human rights, are individuals? Yes, they are individual. Cultural differences will be there. Language differences will be there. People are different one another. It's a diversity. That's why it's a society. The psychologically, physically, mentally, cognitively, language-wise, we are different. That is obvious. But with this journey of the understanding of anthropological diversity, we move on to the cultural aspects of anthropological aspects, and a number of sociologists in the developing countries have objected to the universal character of human rights, thinking that they lead to cultural imperialism of the West. They claim that Western societies are imposing their value system on the other cultures. For example, excuse me, the Western idea of free speech may not be relevant to an illiterate, unemployed, or starving individual. কথা বলার অধিকার, সমানাধিকার অবশ্যই থাকবে। সব জায়গায় সব অধিকারটা সবার জন্য নাও সুটেবল হতে পারে। শিডিউল কাস্ট বা শিডিউল ট্রাইব পিপলস যারা কিছু বুঝতেই পারছে না, তাদের দিন আনি দিন খাই অবস্থা, হু আর স্ট্রাগলিং ফর দেয়ার লাইফ অ্যান্ড লিবার্টি, তারা জানে না যে পরের দিন তাদের ভাত জুটবে কিনা, তারা নিশ্চয়ই কারোর বক্তৃতা বা কারোর রাইট টু স্পিচ সেসব নিয়ে আলোচনাটা ইন্টারেস্টেড হবে না। ইটস কোয়াইট অবভিয়াস। It's different perspective from one another. That means human rights is universal, of course, but maintaining with the cultural differences. The East Asian challenge. Okay, related with that cultural issues, I would like to point it out that relevance with this pandemic also. When people are struggling a lot for drinking water and the droplets of water in a very remote area of Rajasthan, where a glass of drinking water is a fascinating thing for them, we can't expect that they will wash their hand with water and soap vigorously. Can we expect? No. Then the right is being violated there also, because government may not able to reach to that portion of the Indian continent, India as a continent, I would rather say subcontinent, that they may not able to reach to that person in this crisis period. That how would we expect from them who cannot able to drink a glass of water, they will wash their hand continuously with soap. The East Asian challenge, the opposition of UDHR discussed above, has gained force in the recent years. It is known as Asian values debate or the East Asian challenge because the arguments are mainly put forward by China, Indonesia, Malaysia, North Korea, Iran, Singapore. In fact, in the Bangkok meet of the NGOs on the eve of Vienna conference and their declaration of human rights in 1993 is usually considered to the beginning of East Asian challenge. Now, moving to the almost similar, this is an important slide. National Human Rights Commission of India. I'm very privileged that I was part of NHRC in my journey of as a human rights researcher. The NHRC is a statutory public body constituted on 12th October 1993 under the Protection of Human Rights Ordinance of 20th September 1993. It was given a statutory basis by the Protection of Human Rights Act. 1993. The NHRC is a National Human Rights Commission of India responsible for the protection and promotion of human rights defined by the Act as rights related to life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual, granted by the Constitution or embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by courts in India. Remember carefully, NHRC will have the full power to give recommendation if any kind of human rights violation could be happen. That should be which are granted by the Constitution. ভালো করে বোঝার বিষয়, আমার কোনো একটা অধিকার খরণ হচ্ছে মনে করছি বলে আমি এনএইচআরসি তে কমপ্লেইন করতে চলে যাব, হবে না। হবে না, কেন হবে না? হবে না এই জন্য এখানে মেনশন করা আছে, কিন্তু এই অ্যাক্টে কি বলা হচ্ছে, দ্য রাইটস, যে অধিকারগুলো, যে সম্মতাগুলো বা সাম্যগুলো বা যে মর্যাদাগুলো আমাদের কনস্টিটিউশনে দেওয়া আছে, সেইগুলো কনস্টিটিউশন ওয়াইজ যদি মানা না হয় বা যদি কোনো ক্ষেত্রে ইন্টারন্যাশনাল যে কোভেনেন্টস যেগুলোতে ইন্ডিয়া ইজ আ সিগনেটারি পার্ট বা ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাজ আ সাইনিং বডি, যে সমস্ত ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কোভেনেন্টস বা রাইটস গুলো ইন্ডিয়া সাইন করেছে সেই সংক্রান্ত কোনো যদি অধিকার খরিত হচ্ছে, তাহলেই এনএইচআরসি তে কমপ্লেইন করা যাবে। NHRC is a statutory body which have the full control to provide any kind of recommendation if any kind of violation could be happen, which have been written in the Constitution and enforceable by the Court of India. Now, very important, the functions of NHRC. The Protection of Human Rights Act mandates the NHRC to perform the following things. These are the proactively or reactively inquire into violations of human rights by government of India or negligence of such violation by a public servant, mainly police, public servant. The protection of human rights and recommend measures for their effective implementation. Review the factors including acts of terrorism that inhibits the enjoyment of human rights and recommend appropriate remedial measures. To study treaties and other international instruments on human rights and make recommendations for their effective implementation. Undertake and promote research in the field of human rights. NHRC is providing short-term grants for the governmental colleges, institutions to do some research, in-depth research in the field of human rights. To visit jails, regular visit into the jails and study the condition of the inmates. Engage in human rights education among various sections of the society and promote awareness of the safeguards available for the protection of these rights through publications, the media, seminars, and other available means. Encourage the efforts of the NGOs and institutions, Congress to working in the field of human rights. It considers the necessity for the protection of human rights, requesting with the understanding of any public record copy thereof from the court or Human Rights Commission is a full of the encyclopedia of human rights situation in India. They can ask for any documentation to any public servant to look around the situation in Indian human rights issues. But unfortunately, it's not been so active or proactive in such a way to provide them the appropriate guidelines for maintaining the human rights issues in India nowadays. Now moving to the women and human rights issues. It's a vast issues. Whenever we are talking about women, just think about Dalit women, think about tribal women, because they are being denied in a both way. As they are women, on the other part, they are Dalit or tribes or from the minority groups. CEDAW, helps girls and women in every age to claim their rights, even through CEDAW mainly, Convention on the Elimination of Declaration of All Forms of Racial Governments, and Deprivation Against Women. These are the two basic international parameters or international covenant that helps to promote, protect women's and girls' rights from any kind of violation in their life and stages. From when they are born to when they are little girls, adolescent, grown-up women, and through the old age. If a girl learns how to claim her rights while she is still a child, she is more likely to be able to enjoy her rights as a woman. In this way, in this journey, education is a vital tool or instrument to make the empowerment of girls. So girl education is a vital thing as an instrumentalization. Di এখনো কি সময় আছে? Do we have some time?
Yes, we are enjoying.
Okay. No, we still we have some time, or it's time over.
You can continue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Being aware of girls' and women's rights is the first step towards ending any kind of discrimination faced by girls and women when girls and boys take time to learn more about girls and women's rights and what government should do to stop discrimination of girls and women. They are already helping. Girls and boys should know they have the same rights. Girls and boys as a human, because they are both human, so they have similar rights, same rights in the society. Fortunately, it's not happening to some extent, but I think awareness and education procedure for human rights is been engaging and enhancing day by day with the procedure of Nhrc and the governmental mechanisms. So I think in near future, we will definitely can able to claim that we are equal in a true way. Children and human rights, the UNCRC, Convention on the Rights of the Child, consists of 54 articles that set out children's rights and how governments should work together to make them available to all children. Under this term of the convention, governments are required to meet children's basic needs and help them to reach full potential. The central to this acknowledgement of every child has basic fundamental rights. This include the right to life, survival, and development, protection from violence, abuse, or neglect, and education that enables children to fulfill their potentials, be raised by and to have relationships with their parents, with the healthy relationships, express their opinions, and to be listened to. So these are the main things that have been articulated in CRC, and India is already the signatory of CRC and CEDAW for both. Scheduled caste and scheduled tribe with the human rights issues. Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act has been already in India in 1989. So Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act is an act of the Parliament of India enacted to prevent atrocities against Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes. The act is popularly known as SC/ST Act, POA, the Prevention of Atrocities Act, or simply the Atrocities Act. It was enacted when the provisions of the existing laws and with this such as the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955 and Indian Penal Code were found to be inadequate to check these crimes, defines as Atrocities Act, recognizing the counting gross. There are some noises going on. Can you please mute yourself?
Yeah, I'm trying. Continue, I'm trying.
Okay, thanks. Recognizing the continuous growth, the identities as an individual, and with the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes issues, we are having so many atrocities can be seen in the jails, false acquisition, and putting them as a tag of criminals, criminal mind to some extent. So many things have been happened, but I think Nhrc was the first institutions who would look around into this kind of human rights violations against them. Now moving to the environmental issues. Environmental rights include political rights like rights for indigenous peoples and the collectiveness, the right to information and participation in decision making, freedom of opinion and expression, and the right to resist unwanted developments, unwanted constructions, dam making, and due to that, environmental is a under biggest crisis. We also believe that the right to claim the reversions of the violated rights, including rights for the climate refugees and other displaced by environmental destructions, the right to claim ecological debt, and right to environmental justice. Many of these rights, particularly the political ones, are well established and enshrined in the various conventions and agreements. We can credit the establishment of some of these rights as well as the acceptance of others that are not yet legally recognized to the ongoing struggles of the communities and indigenous peoples around the world. Recent crisis on the Amazon is the biggest crisis in the environmental rights also. So that's one of the biggest examples in this current days. Other new rights, including rights for climate refugees, have arisen over recent years due to the accretions of economic globalization. The expansion of urbanization is the biggest challenge for those who are actually living there in this maintaining the ecological balance and accompanying environmental destruction and social disruptions. Still others, like the right to claim ecological debt, have emerged with the recent years of compiling and campaigning by the so many NGOs. One of the NGO is the Friends of Earth and others. These are the one of a wonderful NGO. They are doing wonderful job in the recognitions of the impacts of the issues related with resource management and the natural destructions. So here I am going to stop myself, and I am really thankful for the organizers. And if you have some questions, I know you have already so many questions. So if time permits, I will definitely like to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Swati, for your excellent, enriching lecture. I think not only the students, the teachers are also helpful from your lecture. It is helpful to us also. Now I would like to request, if there is any question for the speaker, you can ask. You can unmute yourself. Is there any question for the speaker from the students, from the teachers who have joined? Then kindly let us know, and we will unmute them, and then she or he can ask the question.
Jishmita, before asking the question, let him or her introduce, okay? Then ask the question, okay? So you can ask the question in Bengali too, no problem. Jishu?
Saying something.
তুমি বলো তোমার কোশ্চেন কি বলো।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল, এডুকেশনটা তো তাহলে সবারই অধিকারের মধ্যে পড়ছে, তাহলে এটাতে কেন মেরিট সিস্টেমে না করে কোয়ালিফিকেশন না করে এটাতে কেন কাস্ট সিস্টেম টাইপের এসটি বা জেনারেল হিসেবে ভাগ করা হয়েছে? এটা তো মেরিটে করা যেতে পারে না।
থ্যাংক ইউ যিশু, তুমি থাকো।
এটাই বল।
খুব রেলেভেন্ট কোশ্চেন, সত্যি আমাদের রিজার্ভেশন আনা হয়েছিল। যিশু, আমি তোমাকে একটু সাজেস্ট করব, তুমি যদি একটুখানি আমাদের কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রণেতা ডক্টর বি আর আম্বেদকরের একটু লেখা পড়ো, তুমি তখন বুঝতে পারবে ওই সিনারিওতে, মানে আমরা যদি আজকের থেকে পিছিয়ে যাই আরো 50 বছর 60 বছর আগে, when the situation wasn't there, মানে আমাদের এই পরিস্থিতির সঙ্গে সেই পরিস্থিতির তুলনাই করতে পারবো না, সেই পরিস্থিতিতে শুধুমাত্র শিক্ষাটা কিরকম ভাবে একটা গোষ্ঠীর হাতে ছিল, মানে শুধুমাত্র সেখানে শিক্ষার অধিকারটা উচ্চ শ্রেণীর ব্রাহ্মণ এবং ক্ষত্রিয়দের মধ্যে সীমাবদ্ধ ছিল। তাই সেই সময় কাস্টের হিসেবে রিজার্ভেশনটা আনা হয়েছিল। কিন্তু যদি আমরা দেখি যে এখন বলা হবে যে তাহলে 75 বছর পরেও স্বাধীনতা কেন সেটা এখনো মেনটেন করা হচ্ছে, সেক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু এখন নতুন রুলস আসতে চলেছে যে মেরিটের ভিত্তিতে আমাদের কিন্তু শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা হতে পারে। তো আগামী দিনে কিন্তু আমরা দেখতে পারি যে হয়তো আমাদের রিজার্ভেশনটা উঠিয়ে দেওয়া হচ্ছে। এবার তোমাকে বুঝতে হবে যে ঐতিহাসিক প্রেক্ষাপটটা কি ছিল তখন কিন্তু এই যে একদম নিম্ন বর্ণের যে মানুষগুলো ছিল বা দলিত ছিল, তাদের কিন্তু সেইভাবে শিক্ষার অধিকারী ছিল না, মানে তারা ঢুকতে পারতো না। তুমি বি আর আম্বেদকরের, আমি তোমাকে একটা রিকোয়েস্ট করবো, বি আর আম্বেদকরের ওয়েটিং ফর ভিসা একটু পড়ো। অসাধারণ একটা লেখা, অসাধারণ। কিভাবে একটা মানুষ উচ্চশিক্ষিত হয়েছে, বিদেশে গেছে, ডিগ্রি নিয়ে এসছে, তাকে একটা থাকার জায়গা দেওয়া হয়নি, হোটেলে ঢুকতে দেওয়া হয়নি, সে নিম্ন শ্রেণীর বলে। বুঝেছো? আমার মনে হয় আমি তোমাকে আনসার দিতে পেরেছি।
একদম স্বাতী, ঠিক, হ্যাঁ একদম তুমি ঠিক জায়গায় পয়েন্ট আউট করেছো। This was probably our question also when we were studying in college and universities. Now we can understand why this has happened. তো ওদেরও একটু সময় লাগবে, they will also understand যে একটা সময় ছিল যে ট্রাইবাল স্টুডেন্ট বা শিডিউল কাস্ট বা দলিত শ্রেণীর স্টুডেন্টদের পেছনের সিটে বসতে হতো এবং তারা কখনোই টিচারদের থেকে অ্যাটেনশন পেত না। আর সবচেয়ে বড় কথা, স্কুলিং সিস্টেমটাই ছিল না, স্কুলে যাচ্ছে সেইটাই ছিল না। এখনো দেখবে, তুমি যদি দেখো, ফর দ্য স্টুডেন্টস আই এম সেইং দিস, ইফ ইউ সি দ্য লিটারেসি রেট ইজ স্টিল বিহাইন্ড দ্য জেনারেল মাস, এসসি এসটি উভয়ের ক্ষেত্রে। So this is the scenario, this is the problem of India, since there are lots of communities who are still backward. সেই ব্যাকওয়ার্ড থেকে যাতে আপওয়ার্ড হয়, সেই জন্যই কিন্তু কনস্টিটিউশনে বিভিন্ন প্রভিশন আনা হয়েছিল। ঠিক আছে, আর কারো প্রশ্ন আছে?
Suchishmita, I think Rinadi would like to talk something. It may be the question, sure. It may be the comment. So let her talk.
Okay, I would like to request
Shumon. Hello.
Yes, Rinadi, bolo.
হ্যাঁ, চলুক আমি পরে বলবো, পরে কিছু বক্তব্য বলবো। কোয়েশ্চেন হয়ে যাক, দিস ইজ নট আ কোয়েশ্চেন, ঠিক আছে? আমি কিছু কমেন্ট, আই ওয়ান্ট টু সে সামথিং অ্যাবাউট, ঠিক আছে, Swathi and her lecture.
Our Dr. Reena Bose Mitto, the Teacher Council Secretary of our college, and also he's the head of the Department of Political Science. So she is very much encouraging person, and also is a very knowledgeable person for specifically this sphere of the human rights. So it is our pleasure to listen Dr. Reena Bose Mitto. Anyway, is there any question? Anyone? Okay, so yes, I think Dr. Swathi Chakraborty has given a brilliant talk, and whatever I remember, that this is one of the finest talk I ever heard regarding the human rights. Now, the thing is that in anthropological approach, as we are the students who are very much interested, very much looking forward to the rights of the indigenous population. So the question is that why not the indigenous, the word is not even used in India in that particular time. So is there any socio-political or human rights issues are going on? Because as you know, the indigenous, the word, the very, very sensitive word, and in Southeast Asian perspectives, the different, like in Thailand, also the hill tribes, they are not getting their rights. The Bangladesh and also the Nepal, I think, they are not giving the rights. They are not signing the UN declarations on indigenous human rights issues. And lastly, in Malaysia, the Orang Asli population, I asked one policy, the person who are making the policy regarding the coronavirus infection, then I asked that who are the people responsible to protect this Arang Asli population from the coronavirus issues? And he said me that only the NGOs, they can do this. So there is no responsibility for the government sectors. So my question is related to the indigenousness. So whether there is any relationship between the indigenous word and the human rights issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chakraborty. A very timely pointed out question. Even so many countries are not accepting the word indigenous. I think the main concern with that is political issues. In Indian context, I would rather point it out that জাতি এবং জনজাতি গোষ্ঠী এই নামটাতে তারা খুব কমফোর্টেবল ছিল এবং যে সংবিধান প্রণেতারা যখন নামটা দিচ্ছিলেন জাতি জনজাতি scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, that was the more Indianness have been there with their selection of name, rather indigenous. But I think if they are now going to change from ST/SC to indigenous, that was also the holistically it would be more applicable and more approach to the society. Thank you so much, Dr. Chakraborty, for pointing out. And so many countries have not been yet signed the document for protection and promotion of human rights for the indigenous community, and they are struggling a lot. And particularly in this time of COVID, in South Africa, in the South America, the different parts of the world are struggling a lot, and we are having very short clippings of their videos or some newses were there, but nothing been concrete as a documentation from their parts of the anthropological view or the human rights view have not been documented. So I think there is a research gap in there. So I think near future, after the COVID era, I think some documentation will definitely be done.
Okay. So another thing is that apart from the beyond India, so I have observed the Ainu population in Japan, so in Hokkaido Island. So the population itself is changing so much. You can't differentiate the Ainu population with the Japanese population, even though researchers are denied to do the work among the Ainu populations. So do you have any observations about the Ainu population?
I don't know much about them, but I can tell you the observation from the perspective of Santals and the recent changes among the Santals. In India, if we compare, I think similar thing is happening. They are going to be mainstream. So even they are also been feeling ashamed of, I'm using the word ashamed, because they don't want to make them using their own mother tongue in front of others. They are feeling ashamed. You know, in my house, something is going, happening in my reconstruction is happening, and the Orao helpers, they are doing their job. When they were talking, they were communicating in their Orao language within themselves. But when they are talking with me, when I actually asking them that what's your mother tongue, they are feeling ashamed. No, we are sorry, দিদি আমাদের ভুল হয়ে গেছে, আমি বাংলায়, বা তখন পরিষ্কার বাংলায় কথা বলছে আমার সঙ্গে, ওরা লজ্জা পাচ্ছে নিজেদের আইডেন্টিটি বলতে। এইটা খুব ক্রাইসিস, কিন্তু কারণ এটা ওদের আইডেন্টিটিটাকে একেবারে নষ্ট করে দিচ্ছে। আমি থিঙ্ক আমার মনে হয় সেম থিং ইজ হ্যাপেনিং উইথ দ্য জাপানিজ এন্ড আইনু অলসো। It's my observation.
Yes, thank you. And last question is that, is there any impact of Christianity on the indigenous rights, human rights issues, specifically the Northeast Indian population?
It's a bigger challenge for them, because what happened, why they are more prone into Christianity, not the Hinduism, and what was the reason? Then we have to look around with their social justice for them. ট্রাইবাল পপুলেশনসদের তখন বলা হচ্ছিল যে খ্রিস্টান হলে ওরা অনেক সুযোগ সুবিধা পাবে। প্রথমত, এডুকেশন ইজ ফ্রি টোটালি, সমাজে তাদের অনেক উন্নতি হবে। এইটা বলে 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 তাদেরকে, আই ডোন্ট থিঙ্ক ইটস আ ব্রেন ওয়াশ, ইটস দেয়ার জব হোয়াট দে আর ডুইং। খ্রিস্টান মিশনারিজদের ওটা কাজ ছিল, ওটা বলা। বাট সত্যিকারেরই তখন ওদের এমন পরিস্থিতি ছিল, ওরা এতটাই নিম্নবর্ণের ছিল যে ওটা ওরা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে নিয়েছিল। এবং ক্রিশ্চিয়ানিটিটাকে ওরা ওদের পার্ট পার্সেল করে, এবং সত্যিকারেরই মানে এডুকেশনটা সাংঘাতিকভাবে সে কারণে কিন্তু ওদের মধ্যে হয়েওছে ইন দ্য সাদার্ন পার্ট, ইফ উই কনসিডার ইন দ্য কেরালা অলসো মেনলি, বিকজ I was there, I can able to feel the changes, and their approach, their body language have been totally changed. Who are Islam, they are not much educated, but who are Christian, particularly in Keralaite Christians, they are superb. Like their aspects, their visualization, their mentality have been totally changed. So it's a চোখে পড়ার মতো একটা পরিবর্তন কিন্তু ওদের মধ্যে আমি অন্তত দেখেছি in the southern part.
Thank you. Brilliant. Yes, I think it is a beginning, and the thing is, then whenever you are talking, the passion is also reflecting in your face. So this is very important for the student also, those who are watching, not only my student but also throughout the globe, as because this telecast is telecasting in different parts of the India and also abroad. So the thing is that the passion is very important for the researching or cultivating the knowledge, and hopefully Dr. Swathi Chakraborty has justified the issues of human rights and anthropological approaches, and we are very, very much fortunate enough that we can able to listen to her, and hopefully we wish that in future also for our department and for our institute, we also this is for future, we also would like to invite for our student also for a specific lecture too. So now the Dr. Suchishmita Chenchuduri, do you have any other things to do?
I would rather sum up the whole thing.
But
Sorry,
Sonchita already joined. So
okay, good.
Yeah, I think Sonchita is good. There. Sonchita,
are you there?
No, I know he's already left. Anyway, you can sum up, and Rinadi also brief, and also at the end, Pushpalata will deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Swathi Chakraborty, and obviously Dr. Swathi Chakraborty for delivering such a wonderful lecture. I would rather thank her for covering all the aspects related to human rights and anthropology. Probably most you have covered 80% of the syllabus. As I was given, just told you that there is something related to human rights in our syllabus, and you told me that whether you will be able to cover whole thing, but you have touched everything. Thank you very much for that. From the very history of the human rights issues that you have said that it was started during 539 BC and continued and with some very modifications and all. This was very enriching. I didn't have any idea that human rights was started so long back. And now you have also pointed out that there are various issues related to human rights, and you have also discussed how fundamental rights differ for human rights, and human rights is the birthright of everyone. Every individual should be concerned about his or her rights, and the journey starts from your own to the family, and it can continue to the national level and as well as international level. And another important thing which you have covered, that during this pandemic situation, human rights issue has becoming an important aspect which we should not forget. Starting from the social ostracism, staying quarantine, helping the aged people or the people who are in quarantine. These issues are coming again and again. If the students can follow the newspaper, they can see how the human rights are violated by the human beings. So these are the issues which you have covered. You have also covered the issues related to gender and also children, and also indigenous people, SC, ST, OBC. You can see that during these days, these types of social ostracism, social problems has been rising for the Dalit people. So these are the issues which are very important these days the students who are beginning their journey with anthropology or other disciplines, they should have an open eye to see these problems and understand these problems and human rights issues. So thank you so much for covering such a huge thing in your short speech, or it could have taken 2 days, 3 days to discuss all these things, but you have covered everything in a small speech. So thank you so much. I think the students are enriched with your lecture. Not only the students of anthropology, other students who have joined in this webinar, they will also be happy, or it will help them too. So now I would thank you very much again. And now I would like to request Dr. Reena Bosch-Mitro to say a few words regarding this webinar or your views regarding human rights. And over to Reena Di.
And thank you, Shuchishmita. Which I wanted to actually say, you covered every points. So again, thank you, Shumon, Shuchishmita, and all the faculty members of anthropology to honor me such. I should remember this very well, your which importance you have given me. I don't know which I deserve, this I deserve or not. Okay, Professor Swati Chakraborty, thank you, ma'am. You have said so beautifully about the human rights. Actually, she discussed from the different angles of human rights. We know she discussed, first of all, that human rights is our natural rights, birth rights. যে কারণে আজকের দিন আমরা জানি যে শিশু হত্যা বা শিশুকে কোথাও যে কোনো ভাবে অবহেলাটা হচ্ছে ভীষণই, দিস ইজ ভেরি ইললিগাল, কারণ this is our birth rights, that is human rights. And also she referred, I like this very well, she discussed according to constitution, and also she uttered or referred that human rights is a natural rights and fundamental rights is a legal rights. And she discussed according to article, constitution, fundamental rights, right to equality, everything. And in a different angles, amra jani je Shushmita also said very nice that she completed 80% syllabus, not only anthropology, also political science and another subject. And also I liked, she referred also in the aspect of gender, human rights. Coming soon, we will organize a webinar about the theme of gender sensitization and feminism according to on the basis of human rights. So I have also gathered a knowledge from her lecture. Very nice. I think her lecture will enrich the students of different subjects, not only political science. And also I like in this pandemic situation, current situation, she discussed about the elderly people, how they face their problem in this situation. Also, she said NGO should raise their voice about this, all these people who face this problem. She discussed about Dalit. আমরা জানি যে আজকের দিনেও কিন্তু ইন্ডিয়াতে অবশ্য দলিতদের যে টর্চার সেটা কিন্তু এখনো চলছে, বিভিন্ন আইন বিভিন্ন কিছু করে আমরা জানি। ডক্টর B.R. Ambedkar also struggle about all these issues. I like she referred very important name of the books. Very nice, ma'am. Very, very beautifully, very thought-provoking lecture you have given today. I hope to see you and get in a next time. Not only for anthropology, we can also call you, ma'am, for our lecture for the Department of Political Science. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you to everyone of our college, MDM, and also our principal, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Reena Di. Thank you, Reena Di. You have discussed lots of things which enrich us again. So may I now request Pushpalata Tigga Dr. Pushpalata Tigga, Assistant Professor of the Department of Anthropology, Mrinalini Dutta Maha Bidyapith, to deliver his vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee. Pushpalata?
Yes, I am here.
Yeah. Before Pushpalata, I would like to mention that we have 5 faculties in our department, and all the faculties is here. But for this particular special lecture, we took responsibility to start with Dr. Suchishmita Sen-Chaudhary, then me, and Dr. Pushpalata Tigga will give the vote of thanks. Apart from that, we have another good faculties that Tanushree Polle and Shashwati Rai. And Tanushree Polle, is specialization is social cultural anthropology, and she is very, very much capable to understand these human rights issues. And Shashwati also joined this special lecture. So from my bottom of my heart, I thanks to all of my faculties and also Pushpalata for giving the vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, all. This is great and honor that sir give me to this opportunity. First of all, I would like to thank our special guest lecturer, Swati Chakraborty ma'am. She is assistant professor from Austria. Our moderator, Dr. Suchishmita Sen-Chaudhary, assistant professor in Mrinalini Dutta Maha Bidyapith, and our organizing team, our president government body, Srimati Chandrima Bhattacharya, principal sir, Dr. Apurva Bandhopadhyay, IQAC coordinator, Dr. Mitali Gangopadhyay, and convener, Dr. Suman Chakraborty, our head of the department. And also thankful to our faculty members, Saswati ma'am, Tanushree ma'am, and all the members of our college who are joined in our one-day special lecture program, and beloved students, those are patiently listening our this one-day special lecture program. And thank you all, sir. If I forgotten anyone, please carry on, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yes, that's fine. And hopefully we have finished our program here. And now, Suchishmita, do you have any things to say?
No, I think the students and the participants have already got their certificate who have filled up the feedback form.
Yes.
And that's all. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And before switch of this particular special lecture, I congratulate Dr. Swathi Chakraborty and wish that she will get his success, the supreme success in her life. And this is our advance invitation from our department for the next lecture, special lecture, or any sort of coursework, workshop, because you have done a brilliant job and very smoothly, and it's very, very promising in nature. So that's why this is my warm, heartiest invitation to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Definitely, I'll keep in touch with you for any kind of academic exchange program,
Sure.
maybe publication form, maybe any other sort of way, doing some research together. So I'll be always there.
Thank you.
We will be in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Now stop recording.